So I'm here, simply here, begging and pleading for justice for my child. She my daughter at 5 a.m. and she was out at 8 p.m. So that means that human life means nothing anymore. She was our angel, our flower, unnecessarily lured to a home and brutally beaten and murdered. She was invited there. She did not just pop up there. She was not an intruder. She was invited there. Because right now she's charged with the lowest form of murder. I want it up to first degree. I won't stop until there's another charge. And justice for my child.
I won't stop until I get justice for my daughter. These were the words of Tyra Crosby's mother, who, in an exclusive interview, demanded answers after her daughter's life was senselessly taken. The pain in her voice was raw, the heartbreak undeniable. Tyra Crosby was only 25 years old when she was shot and killed in a home where she was supposed to be safe. But the truth behind her death is a twisted, tragic tale of betrayal, fear, and unanswered questions. If you're hooked already and want to dive deeper into stories like this that demand justice, hit that like button, subscribe to CrimeLab Report, and smash the bell, because missing out means these cases stay in the shadows longer than they should. This is the tragic and bizarre story of Tyra Crosby, a woman with dreams, hopes, and a life cut far too short by a moment of violence that no one saw coming. Tyra, just 25 years old, was found dead in the home of Stephanie Alexander on July 18, 2023. But the shocking part? She was allegedly invited there by Alexander's own husband. How could a simple visit lead to a life being snuffed out? Tyra Crosby was a young woman just beginning to carve out her future. She had a warm, inviting spirit, and in the small, tight-knit community of Charlotte, North Carolina, everyone knew her as someone who would go out of her way for a friend. But that all changed when she crossed paths with Stephanie Alexander's husband. What started as a friendly encounter quickly spiraled into a tragedy that no one could predict it. Stephanie, a 52-year-old woman with a calm exterior, lived in a quiet home with her husband. Their life seemed unremarkable on the surface, but behind closed doors, there were cracks that would eventually lead to catastrophe. Was Tyra just a pawn in a bigger, darker game, or was something more personal happening that night? The timeline of events that led to the shooting is still murky. Tyra was reportedly invited to the Alexander home by Stephanie's husband, who had met her through mutual connections. Stephanie wasn't expecting anyone when she returned home that evening, and upon discovering Tyra inside, things took a deadly turn. According to Stephanie, she found Tyra in the house, and after a confrontation, she reached for her gun. Was it self-defense? Was Tyra truly a threat, or was this a tragic misunderstanding? But what happened next would leave everyone wondering. Stephanie Alexander pulled the trigger. A single shot was fired, and the life of Tyra Crosby was tragically cut short. The details surrounding the shooting have since been a matter of fierce debate. Was it an act of defense, or was there something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface? After the police arrived, they found Tyra lying lifeless in the living room, the blood still fresh on the carpet. Stephanie's husband, who was there when it all went down, seemed more confused and concerned. But there was something that didn't sit right with the authorities. They began to ask questions about the relationship between the Alexanders and Tyra, and most importantly, why this young woman had been in the home at all. As the investigation unfolded, chilling details started to surface, and Tyra's family would reveal that there was more to the story than anyone knew. Stay tuned, because the truth is even darker than it first appears. Imagine being in Tyra Crosby's shoes for a moment. You're invited to someone's home by their spouse, maybe to hang out or chat, and everything seems fine. But then, out of nowhere, you're staring down the barrel of a gun. 1 second, you're alive. The next, you're gone. It's a kind of nightmare no one should ever experience. But it became Tyra's reality on that fateful evening in July 2023. As the investigation into her death began, the puzzle pieces started to slowly fall into place. Tyra's family was devastated. Her mother, heartbroken, revealed that Tyra had been in regular contact with her, and there was no indication she had been involved in any kind of conflict that would have led to this tragic event. Tyra wasn't a troublemaker. She wasn't someone who would put herself in harm's way. This wasn't just some random act of violence. It felt personal. But here's the kicker. Stephanie Alexander's husband had invited Tyra to their home that night. So, why would Tyra end up dead in that house? The police began digging deeper into the relationship between Tyra and the Alexanders. What they uncovered wasn't pretty. Tyra's family would later claim that she had left behind a voicemail, a chilling final message that painted a disturbing picture of what transpired before the shooting. The victim reportedly pleaded for her life, claiming she was being hurt, and those words only added to the growing suspicion around the circumstances of her death. Now, let that sink in for a second. Imagine being Tyra's mother, hearing your daughter's voice begging for help on a voicemail, knowing that it was too late, that nothing could be done to save her. It's gut-wrenching, and no one should ever have to go through that. But this wasn't just about a family's grief. It was about a system trying to figure out who was responsible for Tyra's death and whether justice could be served. Stephanie Alexander's version of the story didn't align with the growing evidence. She claimed that when she returned home that evening, she found Tyra in her house. According to Alexander, she had confronted Tyra, and when the situation escalated, she reached for a gun. But was it self-defense, or was something more sinister at play? Did she fire out of fear, or was there something else driving her actions? As police continued to piece together what happened that night, they discovered more. The home, located in a quiet neighborhood, became the scene of a tragic confrontation that no one could have predicted. Was it really just an act of self-defense, or was there a deeper, more disturbing story unfolding behind closed doors? What do you think? Could this really have been a simple misunderstanding? Or were there other factors at play? Things we don't know yet? We all want the truth to come to light. But as the investigation continued, things were far from clear. Tyra's family demanded answers, and the community was left reeling. Stick with me, because this story is about to take a turn that will make you question everything you thought you knew about this case. What happens next will change the course of the investigation and leave us all wondering, could this have been avoided? Now, picture this. You're sitting in your living room and the phone rings. The voice on the other end tells you that your daughter, the one you've raised, loved, and protected, is gone. How do you even begin to process something like that? Tyra's mother had to face that nightmare. And even though it was too late to save her daughter, she wasn't about to let this case slip through the cracks. She wanted answers, and she wasn't the only one. Tyra's family, devastated as they were, knew something didn't add up. According to them, Tyra had been invited over to the Alexander home by Stephanie's husband. The family believed that Tyra went to see someone she thought was a friend, only to end up in a deadly situation. They weren't ready to accept the idea that this was just some random accident. The voicemail Tyra allegedly left was a critical piece of evidence, and it gave them a sense of urgency to uncover the truth. But as the investigation unfolded, there were many questions that remained unanswered. Why was Tyra in the house? Why didn't Alexander try to de-escalate the situation before reaching for a gun? According to Alexander, when she arrived home, she noticed that her house was in disarray. Clothes were left on the couch, and there was an uninvited guest in her home. The confrontation that followed seemed to be a catalyst for everything that happened next. Alexander claimed she grabbed her gun out of fear and shot Tyra in self-defense. But as you can imagine, that story didn't sit well with Tyra's family. Here's where things start to take a turn. The police began piecing together a timeline, and what they found left more questions than answers. Was the shooting truly self-defense, or was something darker at play? Tyra's family didn't believe it was self-defense at all. They argued that Alexander had every opportunity to walk away or handle the situation differently. Tyra wasn't known for violence, so why would she be a threat? The investigation turned up inconsistencies in Alexander's story. The police interviewed witnesses, and what they found didn't line up with her version of events. And that voicemail? It was a bombshell. Tyra's last words, recorded in what was presumably her final moments, painted a picture of a desperate plea for help. The details of that message were chilling, and they fueled the fire for the family's determination to seek justice. Imagine being in the shoes of the investigators. You're hearing this voicemail, seeing the evidence, and trying to make sense of it all. Could it be an accident? Could it have been avoided? It was clear from the start that this wasn't just a straightforward case of self-defense. There was something deeper going on, and everyone involved, police, family, the community, was desperate for answers. As the investigation moved forward, the authorities were under pressure. The public demanded justice, and Tyra's family wasn't about to let this case be swept under the rug. The twists and turns in this story left the community on edge, with people questioning whether the law will be able to hold Stephanie Alexander accountable for what happened that night. What do you think? Was this a tragic mistake, or was there something more malicious at play? Stick with us, because the next part of the story reveals shocking revelations that you won't want to miss. The pressure was building. With every passing day, it seemed like the truth was just out of reach, but the authorities weren't backing down. As more details came to light, the picture became clearer, but also more complex. This wasn't just a case about a shooting. It was about the trust that was broken between a family, a community, and someone who was supposed to be a safe presence. Tyra's family wasn't about to let it go. As the police continued their investigation, they started to uncover more about the relationship between Tyra and the Alexander family. The biggest question on everyone's mind: why was Tyra there that night? And why did the situation escalate to the point of no return? The more they uncovered, the more it seemed like there were layers of secrets buried beneath the surface, making everything harder to untangle. Stephanie Alexander, despite her claims of acting in self-defense, couldn't shake the doubt that lingered around her actions. Her story didn't fully hold up under scrutiny. The voicemail Tyra left, the inconsistencies in her husband's statements, and the evidence gathered by investigators painted a different picture. Was it truly self-defense? Or was there something more going on in that home that night? What started as an act of self-preservation for Alexander seemed to unravel as questions about intent, fear, and motive took center stage. The case moved forward with mounting tension. Tyra's family, especially her mother, pushed for more charges, arguing that a simple manslaughter charge wasn't enough. They felt it didn't fit the crime, and that the justice Tyra deserved was slipping away. They were determined to hold Alexander accountable for more than just an unfortunate accident. The call for second-degree murder became louder, and as the family rallied for justice, the community stood behind them, too. They weren't ready to accept that this was just another case of an overreaction in the heat of the moment. They knew it had to be more than that. Then came the twist. After weeks of legal back and forth and mounting public pressure, the case took an unexpected turn. On December 5th, 2024, Stephanie Alexander finally agreed to a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter, a charge far less severe than second-degree murder that many had hoped for. The sentencing? 60 to 84 months in prison. For Tyra's family, it was a moment of bittersweet justice. They hadn't gotten a harsh sentence they'd hoped for, but at least there was some form of accountability. It was a reminder that justice, while imperfect, could still prevail. But even with a conviction, the aftermath left a lot of questions unanswered. Tyra's family wasn't satisfied, and neither was the community. Would this case set a precedent for similar situations in the future? Was it enough to prevent something like this from happening again? While the legal system had moved forward, it felt like there was still so much left to be resolved in the hearts and minds of those who knew Tyra best. And now, as we reflect on what happened here, we're left to wonder, could this tragedy have been avoided? What drives someone to react in such an extreme way? Was it an unavoidable accident, or was there a deeper issue festering underneath that no one knew about? Tyra's family may never have all the answers, but they've made sure her story won't be forgotten. If this case made you think about the complexities of justice, accountability, and the length a family will go to foreclosure, please share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in this situation? How do you think the community will move forward after this? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more stories like this. CrimeLab Report is here to keep these conversations going, bringing truth to the surface, so these stories don't fade into the shadows.